Hey, are you even listening to me? I asked my husband. We were discussing our daughter Anna's future plans for her senior year of high school, but my husband, Dave, was glued to his phone. I'm talking about something important, I repeated. Shut up, he snapped. If she wants to go to college, she can pay for it herself. I'm not wasting money on a useless daughter who can't even take care of her own grandmother. What? His words hit me like a slap in the face. What did he even mean by that? I glanced at Dave's phone and saw something shocking on the screen. Dave and I had been married for 18 years. We had one daughter, Anna, who was in her second year of high school. For the most part, life at home felt calm and normal. Anna was growing into a smart and responsible young woman. Did you eat well? I asked her one evening. Yeah, she replied. Great, don't forget to clean up your plates. Okay. I brought up her exams and plans for the future, and she reassured me. I know, Mom, I'm thinking about it. Hearing that, I felt a little relieved. I wanted the best for her and knew she'd figure things out. But there was something else that lingered in my mind, my mother-in-law, Judy. I hadn't spoken to her in years, and honestly, it was for good reason. My own mother had passed away not long after Dave and I got married. At the funeral, Judy said something that left me stunned. Stop crying, you're my son's wife now, she told me, without an ounce of sympathy. And then she added, your mom probably died early because of the way she behaved in life, right? I was speechless. She even mocked my grieving mother. Dave, however, stepped in. What's wrong with you? If you're going to talk like that, leave. He was furious, and since then, I completely cut ties with Judy and the rest of his family. I hadn't seen or spoken to them since. Over the years, my anger slowly faded, but I still wondered if it was right to stay disconnected. After all, Judy was Anna's grandmother. One day, we got news that Dave's father had passed away. Despite everything, I attended the funeral with Dave. Judy looked smaller and weaker than I remembered, and she was crying a lot. For a moment, I felt sorry for her. She had lost her husband, and I could see she was grieving deeply. After the funeral, Dave stayed at his parents' house for a few days to sort out inheritance matters. When he came back home, he had a request. My mom is all alone now. She's really depressed, he said. I nodded, picturing Judy sitting in that big house by herself. I think we should move in with her, Dave continued. Please. I hesitated but eventually agreed. So, we moved into my mother-in-law Judy's house. I'm looking forward to living with you, Judy, I said, trying to be polite. She gave me a sharp look. You've never been a great wife, so you'd better work harder now to make up for it. What? I was stunned. Now go make me some tea. Can't you see how depressed I am? You should be more considerate. I couldn't believe it. I agreed to move in because I thought she was lonely, but her attitude was unbearable. To make things worse, even though Dave and I both worked, he left all the house chores to me. Is dinner ready yet? He asked one evening. I just got back from work, I replied, exhausted. You're such a bad wife, he said coldly. How can you ignore your responsibilities at home? I'm really disappointed in you. Judy constantly criticized me, but now she started targeting Anna too. Hey, go fold the laundry, she told Anna. But I'm studying right now, Anna replied. What a useless girl you are, just like your mother, Judy snapped. What? Anna was shocked. Girls should help with housework instead of wasting time studying. Huh? You're so annoying, Anna shot back. Anna, being a teenager, became more rebellious toward Judy. Studying is pointless, housework is what actually matters, Judy barked. You're freaking annoying, Anna yelled. My goodness, she's such a hopeless child, isn't she? Judy muttered. The tension between Judy and Anna kept getting worse, and I started to regret moving in. Why had I ever agreed to this? Meanwhile, Dave was being completely influenced by Judy. I'm home, Dave said one evening. Welcome home, honey, Judy greeted him sweetly. Let me take your bag and jacket. You should sit and relax. Oh, thanks, Mom, Dave said, smiling. You know, it's the wife's job to take care of her husband like this, Judy added with a fake, innocent tone. I'd love to teach Clara how to be a proper wife, but she's so lazy and doesn't take anything I say seriously. Really? Dave asked, sounding concerned. Judy even cried fake tears to make herself seem like the victim. Clara and Anna are always harassing me. Please do something about it, sweetie, she sobbed. You're disgusting, harassing my own mother, Dave yelled at me, completely ignoring what Anna and I had to say. I've never harassed her. She's the one who's always crumpling up my laundry and making my life miserable. I tried to defend myself. Judy immediately fired back. I've never done anything like that. You're the one who's always complaining and harassing me. Dave, believing Judy's lies, snapped at me. How dare you talk like that? You're such a bad wife. You never take responsibility for anything, and now you're siding against my mother? Stop butting in, Judy yelled at me. You should be grateful. It's because of me you even have the life you do. Dave began yelling at Anna and me more often, always taking Judy's side no matter what. Time passed, and Anna became a senior in high school. One evening after dinner, we were sitting in the living room, talking about her future. Anna's thinking about going to college, I told Dave. She's even narrowed it down to a few schools with the program she wants. Yeah, my teacher said this one college is a great match, Anna added. But Dave was just staring at his phone, ignoring us completely. Hey, are you even listening? I asked, annoyed. Shut up, he barked. If she wants to go to college, she can pay for it herself. I'm not wasting money on a stupid daughter who can't even take care of her grandmother. What? His words stunned me. What are you even talking about? Anna shot back. I don't have any money of my own. That's so irresponsible, Dad. Oh, you have some nerve. You just depend on me whenever you need something. You're just as thick-skinned as your mother. I wonder what kind of education she gave you. What? Anna gasped, visibly hurt. Dave was getting angrier, and before I could respond, Judy chimed in. If the mother is no good, then the daughter won't be any better. A girl like her doesn't deserve anything. That's right, Dave agreed. Why should I pay for a selfish, stupid daughter like her? I couldn't believe what I was hearing. How could they call Anna selfish? We had been saving for her college all along, and it wasn't like we couldn't afford it. They were just trying to hurt us. That was the last straw. If this is how it's going to be, fine, I said firmly. I'm getting a divorce. Dave laughed bitterly. Go ahead, do whatever you want. You won't be able to afford Anna's college on your own, idiot. He glared at me and continued. I don't want a useless wife who can't take care of my family, and I don't want a stupid daughter raised by someone like you. And don't think you'll get any of our savings. That money is for my family, mainly my mother. I stood my ground and looked him in the eye. Oh, I see. Well, I hope you enjoy living in a world where your arrogance is tolerated. Dave yelled at me again, but this time, I didn't flinch. Instead, I turned to Anna and said gently, don't worry about the money, Anna, just come with me. Anna, surprised by everything happening so suddenly, stayed silent. You were going to run to your father and cry to him, weren't you? Judy sneered at Anna. He must be so annoyed with you, always depending on him at your age. Then again, I guess it makes sense. He's the one who raised you to be his idiot daughter. Anna glared back at her grandmother. You get angry when someone insults your family, but you don't think twice about speaking badly about other people's families. You're such a hypocrite. Hearing that, Anna seemed to have a moment of realization. Let's go, Anna, I said firmly. Yeah, I'll follow you, Mom. With that, Anna and I left Judy's house. For the time being, we decided to stay with my parents. A few days later, I contacted a lawyer to start the divorce process. I sent a formal letter of intent to Dave. Not long after, Dave showed up at my parents' house. What are you doing here? I asked as I opened the door. I'm sorry, he blurted out. I sincerely apologize. I don't want a divorce. Please, come back home. He looked pathetic, clinging to me with a desperate expression. But I had already noticed something suspicious. Our joint savings account was rapidly decreasing. After investigating through the credit card agency, I discovered the truth. Dave had been spending money at hostess clubs. He was preparing for the divorce and, apparently, had proposed to one of the hostesses there. He had even said to her, I'm going to divorce my wife, so marry me. Huh? What are you talking about? The hostess had replied. I truly love you. I can make you happy, Dave insisted. No thanks. I'm not really looking for that, she said, turning him down. When she rejected him, Dave became relentless. He stalked her and kept harassing her, which eventually led to him being banned from the club and blocked from contacting her. Still, Dave wouldn't give up. He waited outside the club to catch her. I'm serious, please listen to me. I have to go to work, she said coldly. Just give me 5 minutes, please. I'm in a hurry, she replied, brushing him off. When Dave's colleagues saw him loitering near the club repeatedly, word got back to his workplace. His boss called him in for questioning. I've heard about your behavior at the club, his boss said. Stalking a hostess? That's not acceptable. I'm serious about her. I'm thinking of marrying her. I really love her, Dave argued. His boss frowned. I understand you might feel strongly, but it doesn't seem like she feels the same way. Besides, I thought you had a wife and daughter? Oh, my wife and I are divorcing, Dave said dismissively. My wife and daughter are annoying. They keep bothering me about paying for college. That hostess is a much better woman than my selfish wife and daughter. What? His boss said, appalled. What kind of logic is that? As a husband, you should be supporting your wife. Did you even listen to her side of things? Dave stammered. Well, but my mother. That's the problem. You only listen to your mother. You should have been listening to your wife too. And as for your daughter, how can you ignore her future and focus on chasing another woman? That's disgraceful for a father. Shaken by his boss's stern tone, Dave could only mumble, yes, sir. As a result, Dave was demoted and given a pay cut. Meanwhile, I sent him another letter, this time demanding full custody of Anna, a fair division of property, and for the money he spent at the club to be counted as alimony. Dave tried to beg me again. I'm so sorry, I was wrong. Let's start over. Even if we don't divorce, you still have to pay back the money you wasted behind my back, I said calmly. What? He gasped, clearly caught off guard. It was obvious he didn't want to pay. He just didn't want to face the consequences of his actions. I sighed in disgust. I handled all the house chores, looked after Anna, and even cared for your mother, while you did nothing but tear us down. I'm done. I can never get back together with someone like you, I said coldly, a man who decided the future of Anna and me without even asking, who abandoned his responsibilities as a father, and chased after young, cute girls. You're nothing but a selfish coward. Dave's face twisted with shock and shame. I refused him, once and for all. From behind me, Anna stepped forward. I'm really sorry, Dave begged, noticing her. I'll be a good father to you this time, I promise. Please, let's start over. Anna crossed her arms and stared at him, her voice cutting through the silence. Do you have any idea what I've been through these past few months? If you think you can fix this with one pathetic apology, you're even stupider than I thought. Just because I'm a high schooler, you've always looked down on me. She narrowed her eyes, her voice dripping with disgust. A father who takes away his daughter's future to fund his creepy obsession with young women? You're just gross. Dave's shoulders slumped as her words hit him like a slap. For the first time, it seemed he understood how completely he had failed us both. He said nothing and walked away, his head hanging in defeat. After that, Dave spiraled into depression. The hostess he had been obsessed with rejected him yet again, disgusted by his persistence. I can't stand middle-aged men who confuse fantasy with reality, she reportedly told him before cutting all contact for good. With no one left to turn to, Dave finally paid the money I had demanded, to cover the alimony and the funds he wasted at the club. He had to dip into his inheritance from his late father, but even that wasn't enough, and the rest was arranged in monthly installments. The alimony, child support, and his reduced salary left Dave barely scraping by. His once comfortable life had become a lonely, exhausting struggle. One day, Judy came to my parents' house, uninvited and furious. You've ruined everything, she screamed at my front door. You've made my life miserable. I forgive you for all of this, so you should forgive my son and come back home. I was fed up. I stepped outside, meeting her wild eyes with calm resolve. Forgive your son? I said firmly. I'm not his wife anymore, and if you keep harassing me, I'll file a formal claim for the emotional abuse you put me through when we lived together. I've kept records of everything. Judy's face turned red with anger. How dare you talk to me like that? Dave arrived then, looking annoyed and exhausted. Mom, what are you even doing here? I'm trying to get your stubborn wife back in line, Judy shouted. She's not my wife anymore, and you're making things worse for me, Dave snapped. For the first time, he stood up to his mother. Frustrated and embarrassed, Dave decided to put Judy in a care facility. The cost of her care, combined with the alimony and child support, made his life even harder. Now, he was stuck doing all the housework himself and living a lonely, regretful life. Another tough month, he muttered to himself as he struggled to make ends meet. Meanwhile, Anna and I found peace. Life at my parents' house was calm, and Anna poured all her energy into preparing for her college entrance exams. One evening, as I placed dinner in front of her, she smiled at me. "Why don't you take a break, Mom?" "Thanks," I said, sitting down beside her. "I've been meaning to eat. It smells so good." Anna nodded, her eyes filled with determination. "You've been working so hard for me, but don't push yourself too much. I'm your daughter, after all, and since you don't have great luck with men, I'm going to become an independent woman who never has to rely on anyone else." I laughed at her teasing tone. "Oh, is that so?" "Yep," she said with a grin. "I'll make sure to build a life I can be proud of." And as I watched my daughter chase her dreams, I silently promised to always support her, no matter what. Her happiness, her future, it meant everything to me.
My name is Olivia Nelson, and I've recently hit the milestone of turning 30. Today, I want to share a pivotal moment in my life. I have an older brother named Scott, 2 years my senior. From a young age, Scott embodied what many would call a pretty boy. His features were sharply defined, and his handsome face often sparked rumors in our neighborhood about talent scouts from modeling agencies seeking him out. He was the quintessential heartthrob, likable, intelligent, and quick-witted. Our parents and the adults around us all adored him. On the flip side, I seemed to be the odd one out in our family, always carrying a bit of extra weight. Despite having similar facial features to Scott, being chubby detracted from any charm I might have had. I was reserved, not particularly engaging, and tended to keep to myself, missing out on the accolades showered upon my brother for his intelligence. It didn't take long for people to start labeling us as polar opposites, a contrast that seemed to be echoed by our parents. As we grew, the differences in treatment became increasingly evident. While Scott received praise and attention, I often felt overlooked. Hand-me-downs became my norm, even down to ill-fitting shoes that caused me to stumble more times than I care to remember. The only thing I cherished was a backpack given to me by my grandparents before they passed away, a rare gift just for me. As Scott advanced to a prestigious private middle school, my parents beamed with pride, while I found myself relegated to a public school with minimal expectations placed upon me. Money for my education was deemed too scarce, a stark reminder of where I stood in my parents' eyes. I began to question why I was the only one treated differently, but my inquiries fell on deaf ears. Puberty brought with it a growing awareness of the disparities in our household. My mother's priorities seemed to lie elsewhere, leaving me to tend to chores while she socialized with friends. Even when I sought solace in friendships, my father's retort was always the same. "What about the household chores?" Scott, bless him, tried to intervene on my behalf, but his efforts fell short against the indifference of our parents. As Scott focused on his high school entrance exams, his presence in our home dwindled, leaving me to navigate the tumultuous waters of adolescence alone. The absence of my parents at parent-teacher meetings became the norm, a stark reminder of where their priorities lay. In 3 years of middle school, they attended just one meeting, a telling sign of the divide within our family. When I was in my first year, my parents attended the parent-teacher meeting, but during my second year, they stopped coming. By the crucial third year, when exams were just around the corner, they still didn't show up. My homeroom teacher expressed concern about possible issues at home, but I dismissed it. Although I recognized that my situation was far from normal, I didn't face physical abuse from my parents. I struggled to articulate the ongoing emotional distress I was experiencing. Admitting that my own parents didn't seem to care for me felt too humiliating. The incidents continued, with one particularly hurtful occurrence on New Year's Eve. At the end of that year, my parents took my brother to my mom's hometown, leaving me behind. Up until then, I had always been included in these trips, but that year they told me, "You're a student preparing for exams, so stay home and study." It felt like just an excuse, as if they simply found me bothersome. Alone on New Year's Eve, I didn't want to ask my friends to hang out, as it would reveal how isolated I was. Instead, I stayed home, keeping my feelings inside. I watched the Grammys, switched to the New Year's Eve specials, and went to bed after shedding a few tears. The next morning, I was startled awake by the insistent ringing of the doorbell. It was too early for my family to be back, so I anxiously checked the doorbell camera. To my surprise, my uncle and aunt from my mom's side stood at the door. I rushed over, my hair a mess from sleep, and asked them what was going on. "Olivia, you need to leave this house," my uncle stated firmly. "We've already spoken with your mother, and we'll handle the paperwork. Don't worry." I was stunned by his abruptness and struggled to process what he was saying. "Wait, what do you mean?" I asked, thrown off by his demeanor. "Olivia, we want you to become our daughter, if you don't mind," my aunt said gently, her eyes filling with tears. "We don't have children of our own, but we've always thought of you as our daughter since the day you were born." At the time, I couldn't grasp the full scope of the situation. My aunt and uncle, who were unable to have children due to illness, had always doted on me whenever they visited. They cared for me deeply and had often criticized the way my parents treated me. While my parents were preoccupied with my older brother, my aunt played with me and my uncle showered me with the latest treats and adorable clothes. My fondest memories were with them, far more than with my parents. My uncle, who had just come from speaking with my parents, began by saying, "Your parents have no intention of letting you go to high school. They plan for you to start working at 16 to help fund Scott's college education. We can't ignore this, Olivia. You have the right to an education and a chance to pursue your own dreams." I was shocked and hurt by the revelation that my parents were willing to sacrifice my future for my brother's benefit. It explained why they hadn't attended any parent-teacher meetings in recent years. They simply weren't invested in my aspirations. As I crumbled under the weight of this news, my aunt and uncle knelt beside me, offering comfort. "We may not be your biological parents and you might feel uncertain about this, but we will ensure your happiness," they assured me. Tears welled up in my aunt's eyes as she hugged me tightly, both of us overwhelmed with emotion. "Olivia, you have the right to be happy, and we should have come for you sooner. If you're okay with it, we want you to become our daughter," my uncle added, his gaze intense and earnest. As I listened to their heartfelt words, I realized this was the first time I had ever felt truly wanted by adults. Though I was just over 10 years old, I knew what I needed to choose for my own future. I made the decision to officially become their adopted daughter. Fast forward 10 years since they welcomed me into their home, my aunt and uncle have poured boundless love upon me and filled my life with countless joyful experiences. My aunt delighted in selecting clothes for me, treating me to shopping sprees on holidays, while my uncle, who had always longed for father-daughter bonding, saved a bottle of wine from the year I was born for my 21st birthday celebration. Together we embarked on memorable trips, with my uncle's childlike enthusiasm leading us to zoos and aquariums, even during my high school years. These moments were etched in my heart as irreplaceable treasures, experiences I never shared with my biological parents. Initially, I referred to them as aunt and uncle, but over time, they became my parents in every sense. Now, I address them as mom and dad. It was through them that I learned of the hurtful remarks my biological parents made when they visited, belittling my appearance and intelligence. Hearing this fueled my aunt and uncle's determination to provide me with the love and support I deserved. When my parents threatened to deny me a high school education, the idea of adoption surfaced, thanks to my aunt's sober intervention on New Year's Eve. I am forever indebted to my aunt, who rushed to my side that fateful night, and I am determined to repay my wonderful parents for their unwavering love and sacrifice. I endeavored to excel in my studies, setting a goal to build a future that would make my aunt and uncle proud. Despite the challenges I faced during my high school entrance exams, I persevered, driven by the desire to honor their kindness. Entering a prestigious public university was a significant achievement, but it was only the beginning of my journey to repay my parents' love. With dedication and hard work, I obtained a weather forecaster license during my college years and now proudly appear on television as a weather forecaster. Yet even as I pursue my dreams, my ultimate goal remains unchanged: to ensure my parents' comfort and happiness in the years to come. I wanted to make my aunt and uncle proud, so I dedicated myself to dieting and exercising. Now I've earned the nickname the Beautiful Weather Forecaster. Reflecting on my journey, I realized I always shared my brother's good looks and had the potential to be just as attractive. My aunt and uncle have always expressed pride in me, but now I feel I have truly become a daughter they can be genuinely proud of. I have so much gratitude to repay, and I'm determined to keep pushing myself to excel. Just as I was thinking about how much I've achieved, my biological parents suddenly appeared before me. "Olivia, you've grown so much. You've become such a fine young lady," they exclaimed, tears in their eyes as they embraced me. I was leaving the TV station to get into my car when this happened, and I was taken off guard. It had been so long since I'd seen them that I barely recognized them at first. "We were shocked to see you on TV." Scott said it was Olivia. We never expected you to become such a beautiful woman and a weather forecaster. That's incredible," my father said, patting me on the shoulder as if I were still his daughter. "Yes, just as expected of our daughter. We are so proud," they continued. I couldn't hide my displeasure and glared at my parents, but they seemed unbothered by my reaction. "Since we're here, why don't we have a meal at the fancy restaurant just down the street? You must be earning a lot as a weather forecaster, right?" they continued. Their sudden reappearance felt intrusive, like they'd been waiting for me, and their suggestion of a meal at an upscale restaurant made it seem as though they were trying to freeload. I wouldn't allow them to take advantage of me. I needed to find a way to drive my parents away, to ensure they wouldn't want to intrude on my life again. As I pondered this, a plan began to form in my mind. "Mom, Dad, it's great to see you. But I actually have another job today, so I can't go out to eat. Sorry," I lied smoothly. Of course, I didn't have another job lined up, but I did have a plan involving my beloved aunt and uncle. "Oh, that's unfortunate," my mom remarked, a slight click of her tongue. "Could you maybe share your contact information? I'm organizing a small party for my birthday soon, and I'm inviting people from the TV station. It'll be fancy, with plenty of delicious food. I'd love to invite you." Upon hearing this, my parents' eyes noticeably lit up. "Really? Oh, how lucky we are," my dad exclaimed. "And there will be actors there too, right?" "Of course," I replied smoothly, hiding my amusement. "There will be actors, and it's going to be quite the event." A month later, as planned, I arranged for a birthday party at a rented venue. While the gathering was small, a good number of people attended, lured by the promise of a glamorous affair. My parents arrived, eager and waving, acting as if they wanted everyone to know they were my parents, an irritating habit of theirs. "Dad, Mom, welcome," I greeted them, masking my irritation with a smile. "Could you head to the dressing room right away? They'll help you with everything, from your clothes to makeup. Your outfits are lovely, but we also have rental designer clothes available. Enjoy the atmosphere while you're here." At my suggestion, my parents' faces lit up with joy, their excitement palpable. It was clear they couldn't wait to try on the designer clothes. Oh, how easily they were swayed by the allure of luxury. "I hardly ever get the chance to wear these outfits. I wonder if they'll suit me," my mom remarked with a chuckle. "Haha, Mom, you've put on a little weight," my dad teased. "Oh, stop it," she scolded. While they exchanged banter, I offered them flattery, saying, "You both still look young and beautiful, so anything will suit you." It seemed they had been waiting for a compliment, and they both nodded in agreement. In the past, I feared being disliked more than I already was. I couldn't understand my parents' motives, but now it was clear they were quite superficial. They craved high quality and luxurious things, easily swayed by popular trends. Once they had their hair and makeup done, my parents returned to the party venue in high spirits. My mother wore a pale pink mini dress that exposed her shoulders, a style more suited to a younger woman. A sagging skin on her knees revealed her true age. My father chose a bright red suit with a flashy tie adorned with yellow and green geometric patterns. He was the only one in the venue wearing such a flashy outfit, even though there was no formal dress code. The clothes were indeed designer labels, but they were secondhand. I had chosen and provided the outfits myself. I wanted my parents to wear these today, as they reminded me of a family party from my childhood. When I mentioned this, neither the makeup artist nor the costume staff questioned it. In truth, I had no memories of attending such a party with my parents, but my parents believed anything labeled designer without question. In the past, my parents would heed my exceptional brother's words, so long as they weren't about me. Now, they were the ones on the receiving end of my praise, with the label of outstanding now applied to me. As the party began, it was my turn to take the stage and deliver a speech as the guest of honor. Before I went up, I addressed my parents. "I have a message for both of you in my speech today, so please listen carefully," I said as I held their hands. They looked at me with surprise and asked, "What?" But their expressions remained happy as I ascended the stage. "Thank you all for joining me at my birthday celebration today. I'd also like to express my gratitude to everyone who helped organize this event." I began formally. My friends teased me, calling out, "You're so formal. That's not like you." I jokingly replied, "I'm just being myself," before turning to address my parents. "They're here today, right over there," I said, pointing in their direction. The lighting staff spotlighted my parents as I continued. "These are the same parents who had the audacity to appear on TV and even set an ambush for me, despite abandoning me during my teenage years. A murmur spread through the crowd at my statement, as I had never discussed my past with anyone other than close friends. "Olivia, how could you say such a thing?" my mother exclaimed, jumping up while my father remained stunned into silence. Since I was old enough to start kindergarten, these two constantly compared me to my high-performing older brother, Scott, and always favored him over me, I explained. I was the one who never received treats, had to wear Scott's hand-me-down clothes until I was in grade school. Despite all this, I still loved my parents dearly. During middle school, they began imposing household chores on me and eventually declared they wouldn't allow me to attend high school. They wouldn't even attend parent-teacher conferences, I continued. That's when my caring uncle and aunt stepped in and decided to adopt me. Speaking about myself in this way feels odd, but it's the truth. My uncle and aunt have repeatedly reassured me with love, telling me that I am not a bad child. Their support helped me build confidence and overcome my shyness, shaping me into the positive person I am today. The contrast between my cheerful demeanor and my difficult past was striking for the audience, causing immediate murmurs of disbelief and outrage. How could they show up at their daughter's birthday dressed like that? The crowd began to criticize my parents. Unable to handle the scrutiny, my parents hung their heads and trembled. Despite everything, I am now grateful to my biological parents. Their actions ultimately led me to find my true parents, my uncle and aunt, who enveloped me in the warmth of a loving family. My biological parents stared at me, expecting a turn in the story where they would be acknowledged as important. Instead, I offered them a quiet, smiling look. "Mr. Treasure from the Daily Info, are you here? Could you make this story and the accompanying photos into an article? Consider it a birthday present for me." As I called out to my friend from the magazine, he had already started snapping pictures of my parents. Hey, stop it, don't take pictures." My parents frantically tried to hide their faces. Even now, they couldn't face the consequences of their actions. "You always made me do things I didn't want to do, even when I pleaded with you to stop," I shouted. "You can't impose on others and expect to avoid consequences yourself." At my words, my mother's eyes welled up with tears. "I'm sorry. If you publish this article, it will harm us, your mother and father." "You wouldn't want that, would you, Olivia?" I was astonished by their nerve. Did they really think I still considered them my parents? They had abandoned me, neglecting their duties as parents. My true parents are my uncle and aunt. They are the ones I see as my mother and father. I warned them never to interfere in my life again. As memories flooded back and my gratitude for my uncle and aunt swelled, tears streamed down my face. Seeing my emotional state, the attendees quickly escorted my biological parents out of the venue. This time, it was truly over. I had finally cut all ties with those individuals for good. Reflecting on my achievements and the support from my uncle and aunt, I shed a few more tears, feeling a sense of liberation and accomplishment. Following the incident, a magazine editor asked if I was okay with how things unfolded. I affirmed my decision, urging them to proceed with the story. The resulting article on my upbringing was picked up by various TV shows and quickly gained attention. Concerns about my image being tarnished were unfounded. Instead, the story painted me as a modern Cinderella making a dramatic turnaround, and my reputation soared. On the other hand, my biological parents, let's reluctantly call them that, faced severe repercussions after the story was published. They became outcasts in our community and eventually decided to move. Gossip spread to my father's workplace, forcing him to resign. My mother, who had been a homemaker, was now unemployed. My brother Scott kept me updated on their situation, revealing they were living off their savings. Though Scott had initially hoped we could live together again, he soon understood that staying with my adopted family was the right choice for me. Scott remained a constant source of support throughout my college years, helping guide me in my studies. He ultimately chose to sever all ties with our biological parents after my story was published, jokingly stating he might only see them again at their funeral. Knowing Scott, he might not even attend that. 5 years have since passed. I married Mr. Treasure, who was working at the magazine that published my story, and we now have a pair of twins, a boy and a girl. As a mother, I am dedicated to ensuring my children are treated equally and grow up in a happy, loving environment, just as my aunt and uncle did for me, and as Scott has always watched over me from afar. I want my children to grow up kind and gentle like my own family. Besides raising my children, I am committed to repaying the kindness shown to me by my uncle and aunt. This year, I surprised them with a trip to Oregon for our wedding anniversary, which we enjoyed with my husband and children. My aunt and uncle often tell me, "Olivia, you have your own family now. You don't have to do this." But for me, giving back is a source of joy, not obligation. Seeing their happy faces brings meaning to my life. I tell them not to steal my pleasure as I plan our next surprise, maybe a luxurious hotel stay for the whole family. There is still so much we want to do as a family.
Hey everyone, it's June. My husband Gabriel and I are collaborating on this story, but before we dive in, I need to share a rather unpleasant experience. My first encounter with Gabriel's parents, Luis and Lena. Let me fill you in on what they had to say. Brace yourselves. I can't believe you date someone like Gabriel, a real underachiever. This woman has no redeeming qualities. She merely works a desk job in a small office. How on earth will she provide us with a good life? Mom, I love June, and she's the only one for me. I don't care about her income or job. I never cared about those things. Well, we care, Gabriel. We've made that clear from the start. If you paid any attention, you'd know. Listen, Gabriel, if this girl doesn't bring more to the table, she can't be our daughter-in-law. We won't approve. Find someone else. No, Mom, June is the one for me. I'm going to marry her. I had the entire proposal planned, and now you've ruined everything. I was stunned as this conversation unfolded. Yes, I was surprised about Gabriel planning to propose. We had been dating for 3 years, and while I hoped for a proposal, I didn't expect it to happen so soon. However, what left me truly shocked was Luis and Lena's alarming behavior toward our relationship. Gabriel had warned me about them, saying, "June, I've met your dad. He's great. But let me be clear, my parents are not good people." I was naive, not comprehending how cruel and selfish parents could be. While Gabriel financially supported his parents, he distanced himself from them, revealing that they were motivated by greed, always pushing him to marry rich. The day I met his parents, I realized how true his words were. Despite their protests, Gabriel proposed, and we got married. Although Luis and Lena threatened to boycott the wedding, they eventually attended, thanks to Gabriel's desperate pleas. He didn't have much family on his side and wanted them there, even though they made it clear they didn't approve. I later discovered that Gabriel had convinced them to attend by portraying my family as financially stable. While they reluctantly came, their motives were evident. They made it a point to remind me, "Just so you know, June, we still don't approve of this marriage. Gabriel is a successful man, and we expected more from him. He really disappointed us by not marrying rich. We wouldn't have come if we thought you had nothing. Thank God your father at least has something to his name. I hope you don't forget us and our gracious presence today when you finally get the house inheritance. Guys, I'm getting married today. My father is healthy and fine. And there's absolutely no reason for you two to even mention an inheritance today." I stormed off, distancing myself from them after hearing their audacious remark. My father was my only living family, and hearing such comments on my wedding day made me sick. I couldn't believe the audacity of Luis and Lena to demand a share of my money. I chose not to inform Gabriel about this incident, not wanting to spoil his day, and knowing how difficult it was for him to cut ties with his parents. Unfortunately, things took a downward turn from there. Despite Gabriel and I being happy together, his parents were always meddling in our finances. Luis and Lena persistently pestered us about the exact worth of my father's assets. We never gave them a satisfactory answer, yet their embarrassing and entitled behavior continued. For years, I endured their greedy ways, putting up with their constant demands for more money. They fabricated excuses and guilt-tripped us when we tried to refuse. Their comments about my inheritance never ceased, but I chose to ignore them. The situation hit rock bottom when my father was diagnosed with aggressive cancer, and his time was limited. Living far away, we flew to visit him a couple of times. Louis and Lena were displeased, saying we shouldn't waste money on frequent visits since my father was in hospice and wouldn't live long anyway. I vehemently disagreed, asserting that visiting my dying father was not a waste of money. What we did with our finances was our choice, and Louis and Lena had no right to dictate. Their lack of support and covert requests not to visit my father infuriated me. Thankfully, Gabriel stood up for me and shut down their insensitive conversation. From that day onwards, I was determined to teach them a lesson once I was in a better place. I vowed to show them their place. My father passed away around 3 months after his diagnosis, and I was devastated. I really didn't want to lose him that fast. Witnessing his declining health, I knew it was time. Despite the difficulty, Gabriel was my rock throughout the entire time. He held my hand while I flew to my father's town to arrange his funeral. Louis and Lena were only blowing up my phone, demanding to know about my inheritance and how much I planned to spend on the funeral. I was disgusted with those messages, and so was Gabriel. However, we didn't do anything at the time, both agreeing that they would be served their just desserts after we returned home from the funeral. As predicted, Louis and Lena showed up as soon as Gabriel and I returned home. After entering the house, they started to hound us with questions. So the funeral is finally over. God, I've been dying to know what you got in the inheritance. Your father must have left you the house. What are you even talking about, Lena? How does my inheritance concern you in any way? I just came back from my father's funeral, and this is what you ask. Oh, please, June, don't be such a spoiled sport. Ever since Gabriel married you, we've been wondering why he did it. I mean, you don't have a great job, and neither are you beautiful. What did he ever see in you? Me and Louis guessed that it must be because of money. Mom, what is wrong with you? How can you even insult me and my wife like that? We married each other for love. I have told you this countless times. At least have the decency not to bring it up today. Gabriel, there's no reason to be so dramatic. We're simply asking her a question. Your wife can just answer us and satisfy our curiosity. We don't mind if you marry June for money. In fact, we would be happy to know that you've bagged the great prize. You are truly horrible parents to accuse your own son of being a gold digger. You two are insane. I wonder how a great man like Gabriel was born to such disgusting people. Enough with the small talk, June. Tell us what you got in your inheritance. This is the day I was waiting for. Your father must have left you something. Gabriel told me that he lived in a big house. You could just tell now and buy us a house instead. We will make great use of the money. Besides, we are your parents now. Hearing this made my blood boil, and I seethed with rage while Gabriel looked at his parents in disbelief. Even he couldn't comprehend the fact that his parents could be so greedy and selfish. My father wasn't even dead for a month, and they were already planning to spend my inheritance on themselves. Hell, they even started to call themselves my new parents. At that point, I knew I had to do something. For years, I had put up with them for Gabriel's sake. But today was the day for a change. I wanted to show Gabriel just how bad his parents were, I said. Actually, my dad didn't have the house in his name when he died. I'm sorry to tell you that he did own that house for a long time, but he had to let it go for reasons. What? So you're telling us that your father didn't even own his house anymore? No, like I said, he owned it a long time ago. He had to let go of the house very recently, so no, I did not get the house or any inheritance, as they say. Oh my God, so your father was a poor man after all. I knew you were too cheap to be wealthy. Your father couldn't even keep his house till the end. That poor man died with no house under his name. Leave our son, as you're good for nothing. Mom, our marriage isn't over just because she didn't get an inheritance. You can't just ask her to leave me because of a stupid reason like that. Don't speak over us, Gabriel. We won't allow you to continue this marriage anymore. You have disappointed us by marrying into a poor family. You didn't once think about how you could keep your parents happy. I'm ashamed to have a son like you. June, I'm sure you must have trapped my son into marrying you. People like you can use cheap tricks to lure men. Your final plan was to cut us off and enjoy my son's money alone. Well, guess what, June? I won't let that happen. Louis and Lena started to harass Gabriel to give me a divorce and leave. They told him that he should marry a rich girl so that my in-laws could live the life of luxury they always wanted. Gabriel was getting upset and started to break down. I knew that I had to take the opportunity to help him make a decision. Gabriel, are you going to let your parents do this to us? I have put up with their gold-digging ways for a long time now. I didn't open my mouth because you felt guilty cutting them off. Are you still going to continue to keep them in our life? I don't think we can come back from this. June, I've had enough as well. Mom, Dad, today you have shown me just how bad you are. For years, you have used me to fulfill your dreams. I won't tolerate this anymore. Don't be stupid, Gabriel. This girl would influence you and take you away from your family. We are doing this for your own good as well. We didn't spend money on you so that you can go do charity for someone else. You need to divorce your wife and start afresh. There is still time for you to get a rich wife. We will help you. This time you have made too many mistakes on your own. No, I won't leave my wife because she didn't get an inheritance. I'm done being a puppet in your hands. I will stay with June. You two won't be allowed in my life anymore. What will you do by keeping June in your life? This is not what we ever wanted. She's totally unworthy of you. If you stay in this marriage, we don't want anything to do with you anymore. We won't help you when she robs you and leaves you destitute. Seeing Lena and Louis's horrible behavior, I finally decided to reveal the truth to them. I knew that telling them about my true net worth would make them beg and plead at my feet. I wanted to go all out on them. I wanted Gabriel not to regret his decision in any way, so I said, there will be no need for that, guys. I don't need to rob Gabriel and take his money. I have plenty of money on my own, and I will take care of Gabriel just fine without your help. Look who's talking. You don't have to lie to us to make yourself look better, June. We know the truth. Yes, the truth is that you are the daughter of a poor man, and you don't work a good enough job to make lots of money. In a few months, you will go after Gabriel's money once you are destitute. Well, actually, I am not a poor man's daughter. I have 50 million in my bank account. No, I didn't earn it from my job. Rather, I got it from my father. That is impossible. Your father didn't have anything in his name. You said that yourself. Don't try to fool us, June. We can see through your lies. It won't work for us. We will make sure you divorce our son and leave him to us. I smiled at them and then looked at Gabriel. He was still looking very upset, but gave me the signal to go ahead. He knew me inside out, and so he knew what was coming. I opened my bank account and showed them my bank balance. Louis and Lena took one look at it, and their eyebrows shot up to the sky. They looked at each other and said, "No, no, no, this is impossible. You must have fabricated these bank statements. You said you didn't get an inheritance. How? You even said that your father didn't own his house till the end. Where did this money come from?" What I didn't tell you was the fact that my father owned a big ranch where he lived. He sold the ranch and the house before he died. He gave me an early inheritance before signing himself into hospice. He didn't want me to use my own money for his care. He wasn't like you too. Louis and Lena couldn't believe what they saw. Even my words didn't sound true to them. So they asked Gabriel for the truth. When he confirmed what they saw, they went quiet for a minute and looked at each other again. Then suddenly, they changed their tune completely and said, "Oh, this is such great news. Here I was thinking that my son made a huge mistake. You should have told us sooner about your money." Yeah, we got riled up for nothing. Your father did well for yourself, June. I'm sure you'll make good use of that money. Now, like I said, we're like your own parents. Since this issue has been solved, there's no need for you to leave, Gabriel. You should have said something to us. We doubted your capabilities for nothing. You did marry well, son. I'm so happy today. With the expression Gabriel was making, I knew that my work was done. He would take care of the rest. so I held back my cuss words and let him do the talking. I trusted my husband to make the right choices, and he didn't disappoint me. Gabriel was fuming and started to scream at his parents. He said, "You still have the audacity to stand here and keep talking to us? Hell, how do you still expect June to pay for your comfort? You were hounding us to get divorced, and now you suddenly claim that she's family. How could you do this? We didn't know her net worth back then, Gabriel. She hid the truth from us. How are we supposed to know that she's actually rich? Yeah, June, we'd apologize for assuming the worst. You did surprise us. Anyway, now that you have an apology, can we move past this already?" "No, absolutely not. There is no way I'm forgiving you two for what you did today. I just got back from burying my father, and you two didn't even let me grieve in peace. I will never forget or forgive this. I think it has been enough already. Since you two think so lowly of me, there is no reason for me to keep you in my life. Today, I will protect myself and my wife from your toxic selves. Get out of my house and don't even think about coming back. From next month onwards, you are on your own. I won't be helping you out financially anymore. You don't deserve any kind of help after today." After Gabriel said that, Luis and Lena went absolutely ballistic on us. They also kept begging us and pleading with us not to cut them off. Neither Gabriel nor I paid any attention to their requests. In fact, Gabriel was so mad that he threatened to call the police if they did not leave our house. Soon after they heard the threats, both Luis and Lena left our property but continued to blow up our phones with calls and texts. We blocked their number before reminding them that we will press charges if they don't stop harassing us. For the next few days, Gabriel completely dealt with his family while I grieved my father properly. I was finally in a peaceful setting where I could reflect on my childhood memories and try to remember my father for the good times. He truly was an amazing man. As soon as he understood that I didn't want to move back south, he sold his property so that I didn't have to worry about it. He didn't even want me to spend money on his medical bills, so he used some of the sale money to pay for hospice. He was truly a great parent, and I still miss him a lot. On the other hand, Gabriel was also grieving the loss of his family, but for other reasons. Yes, he was finally freed from his toxic family, but some people were guilting him about abandoning them. Those people did stop hounding him when Gabriel told them the full story. Now, everyone who knows Luis and Lena is disgusted with them. The duo still tried to contact us even after we blocked their numbers and changed our locks. We are contemplating taking out restraining orders if they don't stop soon. Meanwhile, I have recently found out that I am pregnant. I'm sad that my father couldn't be a part of my child's life, but me and Gabriel are really enjoying this surprise and preparing ourselves to have a little bundle of joy in our arms soon.
"We're using your mother-in-law's savings for this trip," Carol announced, her tone oddly casual. "It'll eventually become Tyler's inheritance anyway, so it's fine, right?" She added, as if to justify their actions. My brother and his wife had rushed over immediately after my mother passed away, not to offer condolences, but to seize her bank book and withdraw her savings before I could even submit her death certificate to the government office. "You used Mom's money, huh?" I managed to ask, trying to suppress my anger. Carol's response was shockingly nonchalant. "Yeah, we spent about $10,000 on the trip. Oh. The audacity of my brother and his wife, conspiring to use my mother's money without permission, made me furious for a moment. But then I remembered something. These people didn't know. I couldn't help but laugh. "My condolences," I said, barely holding back my laughter. Carol looked puzzled by my sudden outburst. "What's wrong with you? Did the shock of us using the money make you go crazy?" Of course, I wasn't going crazy. I just couldn't help but laugh when I imagined the surprised faces of my brother and his wife when they found out the truth and faced their miserable fate. Their carefree days were probably numbered. I am Samantha, a very ordinary office worker raised by kind parents. My parents were always good-natured, constantly thinking about what they could do for others. Their kindness sometimes led them to being deceived or burdened with unfair responsibilities, but I admired them nonetheless. However, my brother Tyler had a completely different personality. He was always calculating what was beneficial for him and acted accordingly. To him, our parents, who would go out of their way to help others, were incomprehensible. As Tyler grew up, his rebellion against our parents intensified. In high school, he began to demand more money from them, saying, "If you can afford to do something for others, you can give me more allowance." Despite accepting Tyler's personality, our parents never changed their beliefs. Their unwavering character only frustrated him more. Tyler's negative feelings towards our parents only grew stronger in college. Taking advantage of the fact that our parents pay for his tuition, Tyler spent his college days partying and eventually failing a year, causing them trouble. Parents should naturally devote themselves to their children, right? Or can you only be kind to others but not your own family? Tyler would argue, justifying his selfish behavior. After graduating college, Tyler moved out and started living on his own. Although he left home without notice, he complained. Living a decent life on his first paycheck seemed impossible for Tyler. He kept returning to our parents' house for living expenses before heading back to his own place. Concerned about him, our parents kept giving him money whenever he asked. When I finally got a job, I decided to support our parents financially in place of Tyler. "Samantha, it's your hard-earned money, so you can use it however you like," my parents said. Despite their words, I continued to give them money, treating it as their grocery expenses. This routine continued for several years. Tyler, who only showed up to ask for money, unexpectedly invited me and our parents to a restaurant to talk. When we arrived, a beautiful woman was sitting next to Tyler. "Dad, Mom, Samantha, let me introduce you. This is my girlfriend, Carol," Tyler said, and Carol nodded politely. "I've decided to marry Carol. We'll be busy preparing for our wedding and our new life together, but I hope you'll support us." I initially thought Tyler meant support in terms of caring for Carol, but it became clear that his idea of support was entirely different. He asked our parents to cover the expenses for his wedding and their new home. Knowing our parents' inability to refuse help, Tyler skillfully persuaded them to foot the bill for everything. Even after the wedding and the purchase of their new home, he continued to rely on them for money. Carol, his wife, grew accustomed to this lifestyle and began living more extravagantly. However, this lavish lifestyle was short-lived. Our father's health deteriorated and he was hospitalized. Even with insurance, hospital stays are expensive. To ensure our retired parents wouldn't struggle financially, Tyler had to reconsider his reliance on them. I proposed to my brother that we both shoulder the burden of the hospital bills. You've been living at home and receiving assistance from Mom and Dad, and you've had a fair share of financial support from them too, right? This is the time for us to step up and help them, I reasoned. But my brother didn't see it that way. "Why should I?" he retorted. "It's Dad's fault for not taking care of his health. He neglected himself while always helping others. That's his responsibility." Following that conversation, my brother stopped visiting our parents' house altogether. Neither he nor Carol, his wife, made a single visit to our father while he was in the hospital. It was my mother and I who desperately took care of him until he passed away. Even when we informed them of our father's death, they didn't offer any assistance with the funeral arrangements. They briefly showed up at the funeral but failed to greet our relatives properly before leaving. Our relatives looked at them with disdain, but they seemed indifferent. My mother, who had bravely taken on the role of chief mourner during the funeral, began to lose her energy after the funeral, clearly affected by the loss of my father. "Tyler, Mom has been feeling down lately. She wants to see you. Can you visit her at home sometimes?" I asked my brother. After a brief pause, he responded, "By the way, what happened to Dad's inheritance?" "It all went to Mom. It seems they had decided that's what they would do when Dad was still alive," I informed him. Realizing the gravity of the situation, I felt a foreboding sense of dread and immediately cautioned my brother. "Mom has control of the money now, right?" he inquired. "Yes, but listen carefully," I urged, sensing his intentions. "Mom is emotionally vulnerable right now. Don't even think about taking advantage of her financially, okay? I need you to come and support her. That's what's important." "What's the point of going if I can't get any money out of it? It's not worth my time," he retorted dismissively. Despite my insistence that we wouldn't be providing him with any financial assistance, my brother never set foot in our parents' house again. Then, just 6 months after our father's passing, our mother also succumbed. Despite her weakened state, my brother showed no concern. Upon learning of her death, he hurried back to our parents' house. I hoped he would fulfill his duties as the eldest son during the funeral. But to my dismay, he and his wife vanished as soon as it began. Frantically, I tried calling his cell phone, but it went straight to voicemail. In the end, I assumed the role of chief mourner in his absence, managing to navigate through the funeral proceedings alone. Several days later, I finally managed to get in touch with my brother. "Samantha, this is Carol," came the voice on the other end. "Where's Tyler?" I asked anxiously. "He's busy with boarding procedures and can't come to the phone," Carol replied casually. "Boarding procedures? Where are you?" "We're at JFK Airport. We're leaving the United States in a few hours." Lol. My heart sank as I processed the revelation. "You're leaving the United States and going abroad?" "Yes, we're going on an international trip," Carol confirmed, devoid of any hint of remorse or regret. I was taken aback by my brother and his wife's swift decision to embark on an overseas trip immediately after our mother's passing. However, what Carol uttered next left me utterly astounded. "We're really grateful to our mother-in-law, you know. Thanks to her, we're able to enjoy this luxurious trip abroad," Carol remarked, her tone laced with casualness. Puzzled, I questioned, "What do you mean by that?" "We used our mother-in-law's savings for this trip. After all, it was going to be Tyler's inheritance anyway, so why not use Mom's savings?" Carol explained nonchalantly. "How did you manage to get that money?" I inquired, my anger simmering beneath the surface. "We borrowed her bank book and seal when we visited her house. We knew we wouldn't be able to withdraw money once the death certificate was submitted, so we hurried," Carol confessed, revealing the true reason behind their rush to our mom's house after her demise. "So you used Mom's money?" I stated, trying to contain my frustration. Carol's response was surprisingly blaze. "Yes, we've already spent $10,000 on trip expenses. It's a good thing Tyler's plan worked out." Initially, I was furious at the audacity of my brother and his wife for dipping into our mom's savings without permission. But then, a realization struck me. They didn't know. I couldn't help but chuckle inwardly. "Serves you right," I thought to myself. Perplexed by my sudden outburst of laughter, Carol questioned, "What's wrong with you? Did the shock of us using the money make you lose your mind? Tyler is the eldest son, so it's natural for him to inherit more, right?" I responded between laughs. "Sure, that's fine. I'll give up my inheritance so Tyler can inherit everything. That was your plan all along, wasn't it?" Upon hearing this, Carol's demeanor shifted to one of delight. "Oh my, you're quite understanding, huh? By the way, please make sure to arrange for all of Mama's mail to be sent to your house from now on." "Don't worry, it's a simple task. I'll let Tyler know," she concluded cheerfully before hanging up the phone. I didn't hear from my brother again until they returned from their trip. "Samantha, Carol told me you're giving up your inheritance," my brother stated as soon as he called. "Yes, but more importantly, did you handle the mail forwarding for Mom's mail?" I asked. "Yeah, I took care of it as soon as we got back," he replied. "But to know you're not going to change your mind later, are you? You won't say you should have inherited after all?" I inquired. "Of course not. I still believe my decision was the right one," he'd affirmed confidently. "Well, it's only right that I, the eldest son, inherit everything," he added with a chuckle before ending the call. However, a few weeks later, he called again, sounding panicked. "There's a collection notice addressed to Mom in her mail." "What's this about?" he asked anxiously. "Oh, is it from the bank?" I speculated. Our parents always wanted to help people in need and would accept any requests, including financial ones. As we delved into the matter, it became apparent that our parents had accumulated substantial debt. The debt outweighed their savings, making inheritance a risky proposition that could potentially leave them in a dire financial situation. "Did you know about this?" my brother accused, his voice rising. "You knew Mom had debt, right? Why didn't you say anything?" "There was no point. What you're saying is meaningless," I retorted. "If I had known, I would have given up the inheritance too." "That's impossible," he exclaimed. "Why the hell is it impossible, Tyler? You took money from Mom's bank account to go on vacation, didn't you?" I countered. "So what? What does that have to do with giving up the inheritance? He shot back. It's a big deal. What you did is considered a tacit acceptance of the inheritance, I explained. It's a legal concept. Let me break it down for you so you can understand. I explained to my brother that by withdrawing money from our deceased family member's account for his own use before the inheritance process, it was legally seen as a tacit acceptance of the inheritance. I have never heard of such a thing, he rebutted. Of course not, I replied. Not many people would even consider using a deceased family member's savings for their own selfish desires, so it doesn't come up in conversation. You're just making stuff up because you want the inheritance for yourself. I have a lawyer friend, you know. They'll find out if you're lying, my brother threatened before abruptly ending the call. Later he called back, but this time, his bravado was replaced by a sense of resignation. Samantha, you were right. I can't give up the inheritance now, he admitted. It seemed his lawyer friend had given him the same answer I did. Finally understanding the gravity of the situation, my brother realized that he had inherited not just assets, but also the debt our parents had accrued. Despite his protests, it became clear that he was partially responsible for the financial mess, having frequently begged our parents for money without knowing the extent of their debt. Desperate to find a way out of his predicament, my brother attempted to persuade me. Hey, Samantha, our parents are gone, and it's just us siblings now, right? Isn't this the time to join forces? He proposed. What do you mean by join forces? I questioned, wary of his intentions. I think we should work together to pay back our parents' debt. Now's the time to show our filial piety, my brother proposed, his tone almost pleading. I sighed heavily at his selfish suggestion, which felt like too little, too late. What are you talking about? When Dad was in the hospital, I suggested we should help our parents together, but you pushed me away, I reminded him. I was busy at the time, he defended himself. Regardless of how busy you were, you didn't visit Dad in the hospital even once, and you didn't support our grieving mother afterward. I don't want to hear the words filial piety from someone like you ever again, I retorted, feeling a surge of frustration. With nothing left to say, I left my brother hanging. Have you ever done anything for someone else, Tyler? I know you took advantage of our kind parents, but there's no one who will help someone who can't do anything for others, even if they're family. But if you don't help me, Carol and I can't pay back the debt by ourselves. Are you going to abandon your brother? We're family, he pleaded desperately. When Dad was in the hospital, you abandoned him, saying it was his own fault for not managing his health. This time, using Mom's savings is your own fault, I countered, feeling the weight of disappointment settling between us. I regret that, okay? I've changed, my brother's voice pleaded through the phone. Have you? I still think you're just desperate to reduce your own debt. And even if you've changed, the person you should apologize to is no longer in this world. It's too late. I interjected firmly, cutting him off before hanging up the phone. I had no intention of helping him. After all the trouble he had caused our parents throughout the years, burdened with debt and unable to live the carefree life they once had, Tyler and Carol's relationship quickly turned sour. However, living separately would only incur more expenses. Unable to afford even the moving expenses, they had no choice but to continue their married life together, bickering all the while. At first, they tried to save money and pay off the debt little by little from their salaries, but it didn't last long. Neither Tyler nor Carol could forget their luxurious lifestyle, and they would secretly spend money behind each other's backs, causing their debt to never decrease. As a result, they blamed each other for their inability to reduce the debt further, damaging their relationship. Their marriage continued to crumble in this vicious cycle. On the other hand, I finally found the time to properly mourn our parents. I remembered how during our parents' funeral, countless attendees tearfully expressed their gratitude for the help our parents had provided them when they were in need. Realizing how many people our parents had helped made me feel even more proud of them. It was ironic that my brother, who had never shown any gratitude and had always caused trouble for our parents, ended up shouldering the debt that resulted from their acts of kindness. Even though they were drowning in debt, I still admired our parents for never giving up on helping others. With these thoughts in mind, I continued to pay my respects to our parents at the family altar every day. My brother invited us to stay at his place and said we wouldn't have to pay rent or bills. I work with money and my husband Charlie fixes cars. We live in the house where I grew up. But it's not just any house. It's been in my family for a long time and used to be where my dad ran his business. My brother was supposed to take over the business, so he studied economics in college. He even went to Oxford University to learn more about running a business. After that, he came back to the US and worked with our dad for a while. When our parents retired and moved away, they gave the business to my brother and the house to me. So my husband and I decided to live there. The house is in a great spot, close to public transportation and other important places like shops, hospitals, and schools. It's perfect for us now, and even when our kids grow up and move out, we'll still be comfortable here. I'm really thankful my parents gave me this house. We were excited about our future here, but things took a bad turn unexpectedly. My mother-in-law started visiting a lot after we moved in. She kept asking about my parents' money because they used to run a business. She'd say things like, "Hey Maya, how much money do your parents have? What will you get when they pass away?" It made me uncomfortable. I didn't want to be rude, so I just said, "I'm not sure. I haven't thought about it much. They gave us this house, so maybe there won't be much money left." I tried to brush it off, but she kept pushing, saying, "That can't be true. They're getting old. They must have talked to you about their money." It seemed like she was really interested in their wealth, like she was expecting to get something. I already knew what I would inherit, but I decided not to tell her or my husband, who's close to her, to avoid any more trouble. Something really unexpected happened next. Out of nowhere, my mother-in-law and my brother-in-law's family moved into our house. It was a holiday morning around 8:00 a.m. when the doorbell rang. I opened it to find movers standing there. I was shocked and confused. Then my mother-in-law and brother-in-law's family showed up and said, "We're moving in here today, so take care of us." When I saw their smirking faces, I felt a shiver down my spine. My husband woke up, and when I asked him what was going on, he seemed unfazed and said, "What's the problem? There's plenty of space in this house for all of us." He acted like it was totally normal for them to move in. As if that wasn't surprising enough, my sister-in-law said something even more unbelievable. She said, "We were invited by your brother, Maya. He said we don't have to pay rent or bills, so we're counting on you." Then my brother-in-law started barging into rooms without asking and said, "This room gets good sunlight, so we'll take it, Charlie. Move all the stuff out into the hallway." I felt really dizzy after all this happened. This is my house, but they're acting like they own it, opening doors and claiming rooms. My mother-in-law and sister-in-law's family have been pretty rude for a while, especially my sister-in-law, who even went through my bag without asking. If they keep this up, they'll start taking over my space. I've had enough. This is my house, so why are you acting like you own it? I've had it. I want everyone to leave. I usually keep my cool and don't raise my voice, but seeing these people move into the house my parents gave me without asking and acting like it's theirs pushed me over the edge. That's why I lost control and yelled at all three of them. But then something unexpected happened. "How dare you talk to us like that? You're the one who should leave." The moment those words were said, I felt a sharp pain on my cheek. Did I just get slapped? It took me a few seconds to realize what had happened. I was shocked. I couldn't believe it, and all I could feel was the throbbing pain on my cheek. In that moment, something inside me snapped. I can't live with people who would do something like that, but this house belongs to me. I don't want them living here like parasites, so I decided to pack my things and leave, planning to tell my family about what happened. I needed to find a place far away from here, so I rented a monthly apartment for now. I'll have to commute to work from there. As soon as I told my parents about what happened over the phone, I could sense their anger, even from a distance, especially from my dad. He's always been very caring and has adored me and my brother. As a CEO, he was strict, but as a father, he was always kind and ready to help us out of any trouble. I didn't want to drag my parents, who were just about to retire, into this mess, but I had no choice because my rightful home was being taken away from me. While I stayed in the monthly apartment, I was sure that my husband and his family were making themselves comfortable in my house. So I decided to take action based on suggestions from my brother and father. A few days later, during my break, I checked my phone and saw dozens of missed calls and messages from my husband. I knew exactly why he was trying to reach me. I took action and called the water and electric companies to shut off the utilities. Our house relies completely on electricity, and without it, nothing works. We haven't set up solar panels yet, so there's no other way to get power. Since it's really hot right now, living without electricity and water must be tough. My husband's calls were probably about dealing with this situation. Just as I was about to ignore his call, my husband rang again, perfectly timed with my break. "Hey, what's going on?" "There's no power, and the water isn't running." "Did you cut off the electricity and water?" I could tell from his voice that he was in a panic. The house belongs to me, so now that I'm not living there, it wouldn't make sense to keep the electricity and water running, right? That's why I had them shut off. If I kept the utilities on, I'd have to pay the bills even though I'm not living there. I can't agree to that, so I naturally had them turned off. When I explained this to my husband, he got really angry and insisted that I turn the services back on right away. But just because he wants me to doesn't mean I'm going to agree. I get it. If they want to renew the services, they should pay for it themselves. But whenever this comes up, they always say things like, "It's your house, so you should foot the bill." Their words and actions don't match. Anyway, I have no plans to renew the contract or tell them to leave the house immediately. I simply hung up the phone after saying that as my break was ending. Later on, my mother-in-law, sister-in-law, and brother-in-law all called me saying the same thing. They wanted me to reconnect the electricity and water because their room was too hot and uncomfortable, and it was inconvenient without water. But these were their problems, not mine. After listening to their complaints, I told them to deal with it themselves and hung up. I thought they were just being greedy and hoped they'd give up and leave soon. Even after a week went by, there was no sign of them leaving. So I decided to take stronger action. I talked to a lawyer from my father's company about the situation and asked him to send a notice to my husband. The notice was about trespassing. They had entered my house without permission, forced me out, and were using it as if it were their own. I warned them that I was considering taking legal action against them for this. Why did I receive this document from a lawyer? Did things really have to escalate this far? My husband, who seemed surprised and panicked by my actions, came to me seeking a resolution. Knowing how much they care about their reputation, the thought of being sued would be really stressful for them. They definitely don't want to deal with a lawyer, but they also don't want to give up their current lifestyle. So they're likely trying to find a way to convince me to let them stay. I can see through my husband's intentions very clearly, but I couldn't bring myself to listen to their pleas, so I didn't give in to my husband's requests. My husband finally exploded in anger, forgetting he was at work, and yelled at me, "Stop it. Just because we're being a bit sneaky doesn't mean you can act all high and mighty. Go back to how things were and drop the lawyer." Despite his loud outburst, I remained unaffected. Instead, I felt annoyed by his call, thinking, who does he think he is, taking over someone else's house? No matter how much he shouts, my stance won't change. If they continue squatting there, I'll take legal action. They better think twice before acting. Even as my husband continued yelling over the phone, I ignored him and hung up. It felt like a waste of time. I had already discussed divorce with my lawyer. When I got home, I saw missed calls from my mother-in-law and sister-in-law, but I knew they'd only try to settle things. I didn't want to waste any more time, so I blocked their numbers to avoid further calls. After the threat of legal action, my husband's prideful family couldn't bear the thought of being sued. They packed their bags and left the house. With the lawyer's help, the divorce negotiations went smoothly. I arranged for a cleaning service to come in, and finally, I returned to my sparkling clean house. While living separately from my husband's family and then in a monthly rental was comfortable, nothing beats being back in my own home. However, I noticed that the house needed some renovations in certain areas. I discussed this with my father, who introduced me to a reliable contractor. I began planning the renovations with their help. Living alone is really comfortable. I enjoy the freedom of not being tied down by anyone else. I found myself enjoying the freedom of my current life. I could lounge on the sofa without anyone scolding me, eat whatever I wanted without judgment. But then, I received a call from an unknown number after 3 months of silence. Initially, I ignored it, thinking it might be a contractor. However, when the calls persisted, I reluctantly answered, only to find it was from my ex-husband, from whom I had recently divorced with the help of a lawyer. We had made a pact to never contact each other again. So why was he calling now, especially after changing his number? We had agreed through our lawyers to stay apart for good. There was nothing left to discuss, so I asked him not to contact me again. Just as I was about to hang up, he pleaded, "Please just listen to me for a moment. I'm begging you." Despite my reluctance, he began speaking without my consent. It turned out his company was facing a severe financial crisis and they had decided to reduce his salary. Moreover, my mother-in-law's health was failing, rendering her unable to work. My sister-in-law and her husband couldn't contribute much to the household expenses due to his unstable job situation. Although my sister-in-law was working multiple part-time jobs, most of her earnings were going towards paying off her husband's debts. My ex-husband was struggling to make ends meet, and with his salary cut, things were only going to get tougher. After hearing all of that, all I could think was, okay, so what? They barged into my house without permission, did whatever they wanted, and even tried to kick me out. It's simply unbelievable. I feel nothing for people who would do such a thing, and I have no sympathy for them. Even if you tell me about their troubles, it doesn't change anything. They're your family, you should deal with it yourself. There's nothing I can do about it. My ex-husband started to panic even more at my words. Don't say that. We're in serious trouble. We won't even be able to pay the rent for our apartment and will struggle to buy food tomorrow. We used to be a family, right? Please help us, he pleaded, almost in tears. But I wasn't convinced. When I was in trouble, he did nothing to help, and he, along with my mother-in-law, looked down on me. Just like her, my sister-in-law and brother-in-law always belittled me. They insulted me for my appearance or my old-fashioned views. They didn't care how much it hurt me. My mother-in-law not only made things worse, but she also pressured me to have a baby as soon as possible. She forced strange herbal medicines on me, booked unnecessary doctor's appointments, and spread rumors to the neighbors that I was unable to conceive. Looking back, there wasn't a single positive aspect to my marriage. My ex-husband, who used to be kind before we got married, became a puppet under my mother-in-law's control after the wedding. On the first day my mother-in-law barged into our house, I was out for an appointment. She cried to my husband, saying she wanted to be friends with me, but the moment we met, she would badmouth me. She'd say things like, "My son seems to have lost weight. Is it because your cooking is so bad?" Whether we were at home or out. My sister-in-law and brother-in-law would join in, laughing at me. I can't deal with people who behave like this anymore. No matter what you say, my feelings won't change. I can't help you guys, so I'm going to hang up now. And please never contact me again. With that, I finally hung up the phone and blocked the new number. Knowing my ex-husband, he might change his number and try to contact me again. So I decided to change my phone number at the store over the weekend. But before that, those four broke the promise made through the lawyer and suddenly showed up at my house at 11 o'clock p.m. Open up, let us in, and take care of us. We're family, you should help us. They were banging on the door, yelling loudly without considering the late hour. What's going on at this time? Please go back home, you're disturbing the neighbors. When I went to open the door, they seemed ready to force their way in. So I tried talking to them through the intercom, but they didn't care. They continued banging on the door and causing a commotion. I couldn't believe I was dealing with people behaving so recklessly. I felt overwhelmed and considered calling the police when I heard sirens approaching from outside. It seemed a neighbor had taken the initiative as soon as they heard the police sirens. The group, startled, thought I had called the police and attempted to flee. However, with a crowd gathered, escape wasn't an option. Consequently, they were escorted to the police station by the responding officers. I was questioned about the incident and I explained everything that had transpired. News of my ex-husband and his companion's actions spread rapidly in the neighborhood. Among the crowd was a co-worker of my ex-husband's, and by the next day, the entire office was aware of the situation. Already struggling due to a salary reduction, getting the police involved sealed my ex-husband's fate with his employer. He was fired, unable to afford his apartment rent anymore. Financial strain created tension between him and his sister's family, leading to their shared living arrangement coming to an end. Now, Charlie resides in public housing with his mother, working multiple part-time jobs to get by. Even his mother has taken on part-time work, eager to contribute financially. My family and I are super close. We love spending time together, especially going on vacations. We try to go on trips together 2 or 3 times a year. Even if someone can't come with us, we always bring back a souvenir for them to feel like they were there with us. I'm Jenny, I'm 27, and I live with my family. My dad's often busy with work, so he's away a lot. My sister's married and moved out, so it's usually just me, my mom, and my grandfather at home. Lately, my sister hasn't been herself. Even when she visits, she seems sad. Are you okay, sis? You don't seem yourself lately. Yeah, I'm fine, really. I've noticed you're not smiling much. Is everything okay with your in-laws? Yeah, everything's fine. Stop asking weird questions. My sister got really defensive and upset. She went to her in-laws' house that day, but she didn't seem happy about it. After a few days, she came back looking really scared. What's wrong, sis? You look really scared. I'm not scared, but you're shaking. What happened? Oh, it's nothing. I'm just a bit cold. I was worried seeing my sister like this. Soon after, someone knocked on our door. It was Sean, my sister's husband. Hey, there you are. We were worried about you. Oh, Sean. Sorry for the trouble. Rachel was feeling homesick. Let's go home, okay? Yeah, okay. And she left with Sean, but she seemed really desperate. Mom, do you think something's wrong with sis? You noticed it too. She seemed really scared when she saw Sean. I got worried. Do you think she's being treated badly at her in-laws' place? With that worry in mind, I decided to visit her in-laws' house one day. Layla, my sister's mother-in-law, greeted me at the door. Oh, Jenny, it's been a while. What brings you here? Well, my sister's been acting strange, so I wanted to make sure everything's okay here. Everything's fine, really. Nothing out of the ordinary. If you say so. As we were talking by the entrance, we heard a loud noise coming from the living room. Oh no, what's going on? What's that noise? I'm not sure. Look, I'm really busy today. You should probably go back. Wait, why won't you let me in? You're already in the doorway, aren't you? That's not what I meant. Layla wouldn't let me inside the house. I was turned away and couldn't check on my sister. But a few days later, something terrible happened. My sister came home crying. Oh sis, what's happened? Are you alright? What's wrong? She just cried and couldn't tell me. But when I looked closer, I saw bruises on her body. It seemed like Layla and Sean had hurt her. This is terrible. How could they do this? I held my sister tight as we cried together, but she seemed to have something even more worrying on her mind. The baby. Our baby. My sister already has a baby, but the little one is just a tiny infant who can't do much on their own. She came home, but there was no sign of the baby with her. Sis, where's the baby? What happened? Through her tears, she told me, they hurt our baby. What do you mean? What did they do? I've been putting up with it for so long. Sean's been abusive, my mother-in-law's been harassing me. But when I tried to stand up for myself, they threatened the baby. That's awful. She was trying to protect the baby. I tried to endure as much as I could, but my sister's voice trembled and she couldn't continue. Just then, Grandpa walked in. What's going on? What happened? Through tears, my sister explained everything to Grandpa. Was all Grandpa said, but then he quickly made a phone call. Who are you calling? I asked, but Grandpa didn't answer. He just said, we're going to their house. So with Mom, my sister, and me in tow, Grandpa drove us to the in-laws' house. After about a 10-minute drive, we arrived. What's happening? What a surprise to see the whole family here. Layla greeted us, acting like she didn't know anything. I've heard that you hurt my granddaughter and even my great-grandchild. Grandpa said calmly, but Layla just laughed. So what? It's not a big deal. And besides, it's all her fault. She pointed at my sister. I wondered what she could possibly be blaming my sister for. She told Sean to cut back on eating sausages because they're high in purine, and he was eating them almost every day. What's the problem with him eating what he wants? My sister was just worried about her husband's health. And you hurt my granddaughter over something like that. You're making a big deal out of nothing. It's ridiculous for you to bring your whole family here over this. Are you all fools? Layla laughed without any shame. Grandpa stayed quiet, but the furrowed lines on his forehead showed he was angry. Then my sister's husband, Sean, showed up. Hey Rachel, you're back. Did you go to your parents' place again? I was worried about you, he said, not looking worried at all. So why is the whole family here? We're here to confront you. Huh? Confront Mom? What's this old man talking about? I don't know, maybe he's losing his mind. Layla and Scene laughed, and even Grandpa started to laugh. What the heck are you all laughing at? I was just thinking about what's going to happen to you too. It should be any minute now. What do you mean arrive? As soon as Grandpa finished talking, cars started pulling up one after another and parking in front of my in-laws' house. What's going on? People started getting out of the cars, one by one, surrounding the house. There were about 30 people, and I recognized most of them. They were all my relatives. What in the world? Who are all these people? Why are there so many? They're my family. They all came because they heard my granddaughter was mistreated. What? They're crowding our house like this. It's annoying. Well then, let's go inside your house. With that, Grandpa led our relatives inside. Hey, don't just barge in like that. We followed Grandpa inside, and in the living room, my sister's baby was crying. Oh no, his face is all swollen. My sister hurriedly picked up the baby. Could it be they've been hurting the baby since my sister left? That's a serious problem. Did you really hurt such a small child? That's not it. It was unavoidable. We didn't want to do this. Layla claimed that the baby wouldn't stop crying, so they had to hit him. You don't hit a child just because they're crying. Layla and Scene are wrong. I can't forgive this. How dare you do this to my family? Some of our relatives are police officers, so we can press assault charges, Grandpa said angrily. But wait, isn't this a civil matter if it's between family members? Not necessarily, especially if there's evidence of assault. Grandpa confirmed with the relatives, and they agreed. After what they did to my sister and the baby, I won't be satisfied until they're taken away by the police. I insisted, but Layla and Scene kept making weak excuses. We don't need to make a big deal out of this. We just need to make sure it doesn't happen again. You're overreacting. Layla's voice shook, indicating she understood how serious this was. Hey Rachel, say something. We didn't do anything wrong, right? It was just a little rough handling, Scene yelled at my sister. My sister stayed silent, looking down. Come on, Rachel, say something. We're married, aren't we? Stand up for me, Scene demanded. Grandpa immediately stepped in front of my sister, shouting at Scene, How dare you speak to my granddaughter like that? Just because Rachel and I are married doesn't mean you can treat her however you want. It's not right. That's enough. According to you, no matter how much you hurt Rachel, we shouldn't interfere because we're not blood relatives. But as family, how can we stand by and watch? Grandpa's anger was intense, and Scene was so frightened that he started to cry. Wait a minute. You're the ones who came into our house uninvited. Isn't that trespassing? If I called the police, wouldn't you be the ones in trouble? We're ready to face the consequences for that, but you need to realize you're doing something worse. Trespassing. You should deal with that first. What do you mean? Tears started falling from Layla's eyes. Suddenly, Layla charged into the crowd of relatives. Hey, what do you think you're doing? As Grandpa tried to stop her, Layla had already grabbed my sister. You. Why did you bring all these people here? You're causing trouble. Leave now. Layla shook my sister by the shoulders. Fix this. Fix it right now. Stop it. Let her go. Grandpa forcefully pulled Layla away. Wow, throwing around a fragile woman like that. How cruel. Could this be considered assault? Layla tried to provoke him, but Grandpa wasn't swayed. Don't think that'll work. The problem is you attacking Rachel just now. But it's not my fault. We were living peacefully, and then this happens because of her. Maybe you were living in peace, but Rachel wasn't. It seems you've been quite cruel to her, even to your own great-grandchild. How can you be so shameless? I'm not being shameless, I'm just stating the facts. Rachel, say something. You've been silent this whole time. It's your fault all of this is happening. Layla continued to yell at my sister. Then, my sister, who had been silent with her head down, finally spoke up. Mother-in-law, I don't want to live in this house anymore. What are you talking about? You and Scene have always treated me terribly. I never imagined my marriage would turn out like this. I want a divorce. A divorce? Rachel, my sister, must have been holding back for a long time to suddenly say this. She sacrificed herself to protect her child. With the support of Grandpa and Mom, she seemed to find her courage. With a determined look, she declared her intention to divorce Scene. "Don't joke around. I'll never agree to a divorce. You're going to be my servant forever." "No way. I'm not your tool. I won't let you control me. You're definitely my granddaughter. When you decide to act, you really act." Grandpa was impressed by my sister's strong stance. "This isn't the time for this conversation. I won't allow a divorce with Scene. I need a servant too. If you're talking about divorcing, you'll have to compensate Scene." "Why would there be any need for compensation? Of course you've been a pain in the neck for Scene all this time. You owe us a few $1,000,000 in damages." "Hold on, that's going too far." Grandpa quickly intervened. "It's actually you who have been causing trouble, isn't it? You've treated Rachel and my great-granddaughter terribly. You should be the ones paying damages for the divorce." "What? There's no way we're paying that. Besides, we don't have that kind of money." "I won't accept any excuses. You'll pay, even if it's in installments. We have lawyers in the family, so don't think you can just get away with it." "What? You even have lawyers?" "Mom, what should we do in this situation? Should we apologize?" "What are you talking about? We don't even know if an apology will be accepted. But if the company finds out about our divorce, it will be awkward at work." Work." Grandpa seemed to recall something. "Come to think of it, I remember hearing about Rachel's husband's company somewhere." "Ah, I remember now. You work for the company run by my relatives." "What? You have relatives there too?" There are plenty of consequences awaiting you, but your trespassing isn't the worst of your crimes, is it? We need to address that first." "Fired. Not only divorce, but fired. Don't joke around. I absolutely won't allow that. Do you think saying you don't want to will get you out of trouble? Think about what you've done." "Mom, do something. I'm going to lose my job." This is outrageous. It's unfair, all of this piled up on us like this. Who started with the outrageous behavior? All I've been doing is protecting my dear granddaughter." Grandpa's eyes were stern as he looked at Layla and Scene. They were so scared they couldn't even respond. "Let's end this conversation here, Rachel. You can relax now. Our relatives will take care of the rest." "Thank you, Grandpa." As Grandpa began to leave the in-laws' home with my sister, Layla and Scene started to cry out in despair. Wait. We're the ones who were wrong. Please don't go through with the divorce. I'm begging you." Scene was shouting desperately, but my sister didn't look back. She got into Grandpa's car, and they drove away. "You should give up. Everything that's happened is your own fault." "Why? Why did this have to happen? It's all Mom's fault." "What? I'm not the one at fault here. You are." "What did you just say?" Scene and Layla kept arguing until they were out of sight. We went home after that, leaving the legal matters to our family lawyer, the police, and our company's owner. In the end, my sister was able to divorce Scene and even got a settlement. Furthermore, Scene was fired from his job, and it seemed hard for him to find a new one. My sister was finally free, and she couldn't help but cry tears of joy. A while later, we noticed Scene loitering around our house. It seemed like he wanted to reconcile with my sister, but she had no intention of that happening. The moment Grandpa saw Scene, he was furious. He immediately called our family member, who was a police officer and had Scene arrested for stalking. After that, a restraining order was placed on Scene, and he no longer came around our house. Finally, peace had come to our home. My sister said she plans to raise her baby with the support of our family for a while. I too am helping take care of the baby and enjoying my life with my wonderful family.
My grandson David faced his inaugural winter this year, marked by a record cold day according to the weather report. Concerns for David and his mother, Yvonne, crept into my thoughts. I worried that the frigid night might have taken a toll on her health. In an attempt to quell my unease, I sent Yvonne a message on my smartphone, asking about their well-being and urging them to guard against catching a cold. Despite my efforts, there was no response, not even a read receipt. Yvonne had always been responsible, so her silence raised my anxiety. After an hour of futile waiting, I tried calling, but my attempts proved fruitless. Realizing this was no trivial matter, a sense of urgency overcame me. I hastily donned a thick jumper and rushed to drive to my son's family apartment. However, when I rang the intercom, there was no response. Fearing the worst, that Yvonne might have collapsed inside, I persuaded the building manager to open the door. The apartment was shrouded in darkness, with only faint street lamp light seeping in. Searching along the wall, I fumbled for the light switch, but my repeated attempts yielded no illumination. Anxious and irritated, I resorted to using my smartphone's flashlight to explore. "Yvonne, are you there?" I called out, wondering if they were simply out. Just as I contemplated leaving, a faint cry echoed from the bedroom, prompting me to rush towards it. In the bedroom, I found Yvonne shivering from the cold, desperately wrapping newborn David in a sheet to keep him warm. To my shock, I noticed Yvonne's once long, proud black hair was now chopped off, almost completely shaved. Bewildered, I questioned, "What happened here?" "My name is Mary Smith, a 61-year-old woman who had worked as a hairstylist for many years, running a salon out of my home. My husband and I had started the salon together, but he passed away from cancer when our son, Harry, was young. Despite the challenges, I raised Harry single-handedly. He often skipped school and got into trouble, leaving me to wonder if my parenting played a role. One day, Harry surprised me by expressing a desire to become a hairstylist. Initially shocked, I decided to support him in this newfound interest. After graduating from cosmetology school, Harry became an apprentice at a senior salon, where he met Yvonne. Their relationship blossomed, and soon Harry proposed to her, declaring his intention to marry. Meeting Yvonne, with her long black hair and bright smile, left me instantly liking her. A year after their marriage, Harry aspired to start his own salon. Despite his relatively short time as an apprentice, he exuded confidence as a hairstylist. Yearning to establish my own space and showcase my skills, I felt a tinge of concern. Drawing from my experience, I understood the challenges newcomers face in the industry. However, I couldn't dismiss the earnestness in Harry's eyes as he spoke about his dream. Curious about his financial standing, I inquired about his savings. Harry shared his bank book with a troubled expression and a sigh. Despite having a stable income, Harry's spending mirrored his earnings, leaving him far from accumulating enough to launch his own business. He had been squandering a significant portion of his earnings on leisure activities. While I contemplated advising him to reconsider, I chose to reassure him, saying, "Don't worry about the money. Enjoy indulging yourself." Perhaps it was my way of compensating for the loneliness of my fatherless upbringing. Confiding in my late husband's portrait, I revealed that I hadn't touched the life insurance money he left behind, reserved for Harry. Consulting with a knowledgeable regular in real estate, we identified a perfect property, an old barber shop that had recently retired due to old age. Another regular offered her husband's assistance during the renovation, and with my son, who was studying architecture, home for the summer break, we got the construction underway. Upon receiving approval from the health department, the salon opened surprisingly quickly. Grateful for the support, I acknowledged that setting up the business wasn't something I could have accomplished alone. Handing Harry the bank book containing the remaining inheritance, I emphasized its purpose for his business expenses. With more than half the funds remaining, I urged him not to waste it. Harry chuckled in annoyance, assuring me he understood, and Yvonne, with a bright smile, promised to keep a close eye on his spending. With Yvonne's help, I felt relieved from worries and decided to oversee their business from a distance. However, my optimism waned as Yvonne occasionally updated me on their progress. 3 months after the salon's opening, she confided that Harry seemed disengaged, causing a decline in customer satisfaction and a loss of clientele. Perplexed, I couldn't fathom what had changed so rapidly. Yvonne explained that Harry, initially confident that his skills alone would attract customers, had overlooked the importance of customer service in running a salon. Realizing that Harry lacked this fundamental understanding, I grew concerned about the future success of their venture. "So, what's Harry up to now?" Yvonne explained that he's frustrated about the lack of customers and spends his days drinking. She expressed concern that if he doesn't get his act together, they'll lose even more clients. Currently, she's handling the existing customers, but with the continual drop in reputation, the business is on a downward spiral. Listening to Yvonne's worries, I felt a similar sense of despair. Promising to address the issue, I assured her that I would have a serious talk with Harry the next time I saw him. Grateful for the support, Yvonne bowed deeply, brushing back her long black hair. Trying to lighten the mood, I complimented Yvonne on her stunning hair, and she proudly shared that she had been growing it out since middle school for hair donation. She explained that it involves making wigs from real hair for children who have lost their hair due to congenital diseases, illnesses, or accidents. Yvonne had been growing her hair with the intention of donating it to organizations involved in this cause, expressing the joy of being able to help someone. Moved by Yvonne's passion and dedication, I commended her for such admirable actions, especially considering her young age. As the conversation unfolded, Yvonne revealed that 6 months into her marriage with Harry, she became pregnant. Despite being conscientious and hardworking, she continued working at the salon until the last month of her pregnancy, supporting the family while Harry's attitude worsened. Feeling my own shortcomings as a mother, I decided to check on their salon one day after finishing work early. I encountered Harry as he was about to leave for a drink, dismissing the lack of customers as normal. Attempting to make him realize the impending fatherhood, he shrugged it off and left. Inside the salon, I found Yvonne cleaning the floor. Having managed just one customer that day, despite her exhaustion, she smiled brightly. Concerned about her well-being, I sternly emphasized the importance of proper nutrition, especially for the baby. Yvonne teared up and thanked me, expressing gratitude for the support. Learning from Yvonne that the salon was struggling and Harry was spending money recklessly, I couldn't help but feel that giving him the bank book was a mistake. The situation seemed dire, and I couldn't shake the frustration and disappointment in Harry's lack of responsibility during such a crucial time. I found myself regretting my decision. Despite being occupied, Yvonne never neglected her hair care. As she gently stroked her belly, she expressed her desire to teach her child the joy of helping others. It dawned on me that I wanted to support her, especially since my son wasn't contributing much. Recognizing my shortcomings in raising my son, I decided to assist Yvonne at their apartment. Acknowledging the inconvenience, Yvonne would apologize, but I assured her not to worry and encouraged her to focus on the baby. I felt responsible for not raising my son properly, leading to Yvonne's suffering. It seemed like my way of atoning for my past mistakes. Towards the end of summer, Yvonne went into labor earlier than expected, and she was rushed to the hospital. Unfortunately, Harry was nowhere to be found, unreachable despite my attempts to contact him. I sent messages, but there were no replies, not even read receipts. It left me bewildered about his whereabouts during such a crucial time. With Yvonne's parents no longer around, I became the sole person there for her. I reassured Yvonne during the challenging childbirth, providing encouragement as she bravely faced the process. After a long and difficult labor, the sound of the baby's cries overwhelmed me. "He's born." "You did it, Yvonne." I was moved to tears, but Harry, who should have been present, never showed up. Meanwhile, my grandson David was experiencing his first winter, and the weather report indicated a record cold day. Concerned about Yvonne and newborn David, I sent a message that night, but there was no response, hastening my worry. After attempting to call without success, I decided to visit their apartment immediately. Upon arrival, the place was shrouded in darkness. Considering the possibility of a family trip, I rang the intercom, but there was no response. Fearing for Yvonne's well-being, I asked the building manager to open the door. The apartment was dark, and my attempts to turn on the lights proved futile. Using my smartphone's flashlight, I called out to Yvonne in the living room, receiving no response. As I was about to leave, a faint cry of a baby reached my ears from the bedroom. Rushing towards the sound, I discovered Yvonne shivering from the cold, wrapping newborn David in a sheet. To my shock, her once long, proud black hair had been roughly cut off, and her eyes, red and swollen from crying, looked at me helplessly. Overwhelmed, I exclaimed, "This is terrible. How did this happen?" I removed my jumper and draped it over Yvonne. Assuring her, I said, "It's okay now. Just tell me what happened as much as you can." Yvonne began to speak slowly, revealing that Harry continued his daily escapades even after David was born. Financial struggles escalated, leading to an inability to pay the electric bill. Yvonne, unable to tolerate the situation any longer, scolded Harry, hoping he would become a more responsible father. However, her pleas fell on deaf ears. In a fit of rage, Harry grabbed a pair of practice hair-cutting scissors and started cutting off Yvonne's hair. Initially resisting and telling him to stop, Yvonne ceased her resistance, fearing any further struggle might accidentally harm David. Harry mocked Yvonne, stating, "Now you won't be able to show your face in public." I was left speechless at my son's cruel actions. Yvonne apologized, blaming herself again, but I reassured her, expressing that it was not her fault. I hugged Yvonne tightly, tears streaming down my face. The whole situation was a result of my overindulgence in raising Harry. My heart burned with shame and anger at my own failings and my son's inability to empathize with others. Taking a deep breath, I called Harry. "Hey, Mom, long time no talk. What's up?" Harry responded casually, and I inquired about Yvonne and David's well-being. There was a brief pause in his voice, and he claimed they were in Hawaii and would be back next week. Despite knowing he was lying, I responded positively. Reflecting on the years of taking care of Harry after losing my husband, I felt profound disappointment. Harry's careless use of his father's inheritance and mistreatment of his family shattered my expectations. A week later, Harry called me cheerfully, announcing his return from Hawaii. Pretending to be the caring son, he mentioned souvenirs, but my heart was no longer deceived by his act. Informing the building manager of my plans, I decided to take Yvonne and David back to my house. I made calls to every possible place. An hour later, Harry called, announcing his arrival at the airport. Despite his cheerful demeanor, my heart was wary. When a taxi pulled up in front of the apartment, Harry, displaying tan lines from sunglasses around his eyes, struggled with the key, realizing it wouldn't fit the lock. Frustration etched across his face. He exclaimed, "What's going on here?" I approached him quietly from behind, wearing a smile that masked the boiling anger in my heart. "Did you enjoy your trip to Hawaii?" I asked, trying to keep my tone light. Harry's relieved expression shifted as he saw me, mistaking the situation. "Mom, you're here," he said, his voice tinged with relief, oblivious to the storm brewing within me. "Listen, Mom, I just got back and tried to enter the house, but the key won't fit. It must be Yvonne's prank, punishing me for going on a trip alone," Harry explained, attempting to paint himself as the victim and blame Yvonne for their troubles. "What were you doing?" "I told you I was in Hawaii with my family," he continued, caught in his own web of lies. Pointing out the contradiction, I left Harry at a loss for words. "You really had the nerve to lie about taking a family trip to Hawaii," I said, my disappointment palpable. Yvonne had been left behind, shivering in the cold with David, while Harry indulged in his own desires. To think she cherished her long hair, and you just cut it off mercilessly. "Don't you feel any remorse as a human being?" I questioned, my voice heavy with emotion. But Harry showed no signs of remorse, only theatrics about the cold and his desire to enter the house. It was then that I dropped the bombshell. I had canceled the lease on the apartment. Harry protested, but the truth was, he had no right to complain. Taking him to a nearby coffee shop to talk further, Harry sat silently, his pale face betraying his inner turmoil. Eventually, he confessed his selfish reasoning, admitting to his reckless spending and empty promises. I shattered his illusions, telling him I had already sold the salon and the equipment, leaving him with nothing to reclaim. His protests fell on deaf ears as I calmly left the coffee shop, leaving him to face the consequences of his actions. In the following month, Harry's life spiraled further downward. His pleas for help were met with cold shoulders, and he faced legal repercussions for his reckless behavior. As for Yvonne and David, they found solace in our salon. Yvonne, regaining her strength, filed for divorce and threw herself into her work. With David's cheerful presence, the salon blossomed, attracting more customers drawn to Yvonne's warmth. Though the pain caused by Harry's actions lingers, we find solace in the smiles that now fill our salon. And in a quiet corner, David sleeps peacefully, his innocence a reminder of the brighter future ahead.
My name's Harper. I'm 35, thriving in my marketing career, and for a while, I thought I had life all figured out. Then James came along, sweeping me off my feet. Before I knew it, we were walking down the aisle, saying, "I do." Crazy, right? But here's the twist. James came with a 12-year-old son, Tyler. Moving in with them felt like stepping into a minefield. I tried everything to win Tyler over. "Hey buddy, I made your favorite lasagna," I'd say, hoping for a smile. Instead, I'd get an eye roll and a mumbled, "Whatever." It was like talking to a brick wall. One night, I offered to help Tyler with his math homework. "Let's tackle these fractions together," I suggested. He slammed the book shut and snapped, "I don't need your help. You're not my mom." I turned to James, expecting him to step in. He just shrugged. Give him time. But time didn't fix things. Tyler's attitude only worsened. He ignored curfew, left messes everywhere, and constantly talked back. Whenever I tried to set boundaries, James would undercut me. "Harper, don't be so hard on him," he'd say. It was like I was losing my mind. Was I the problem? I needed to vent, so I called my best friend, Olivia. "Girl, you won't believe what Tyler did today," I started. "Spill the tea," she said, and I did. About Tyler's disrespect, James's lack of support, the whole mess. Olivia listened, then said, "Harper, honey, these are some serious red flags. Are you sure you're not in over your head?" "I don't know, Liv. I love James, but this is so rough." "I get it," she said, "but don't lose yourself trying to fix it. You matter too." Her words stuck with me, but I wasn't ready to give up. I threw myself into work, hoping things would smooth out at home. Big mistake. A few weeks later, my boss, Mr. Peterson, called me into his office. "Harper, is everything okay? Your last few presentations have been off." I forced a smile. "Everything's fine, sir. Just a little stressed, but I'll get back on track." But as I left, I knew I wasn't fine. Something had to change. Then the phone rang. It was the school. "This is Miss Thompson, Tyler's teacher. We need you to come in immediately," she said, her tone serious. My stomach dropped. I rushed to the school, my mind racing. Had Tyler gotten into trouble? Was he hurt? When I arrived, Miss Thompson's expression was grim. "Mrs. Walker, Tyler has made a serious accusation against you." "What? What are you talking about?" I asked, my heart pounding. "He claims you've been physically abusing him," she said quietly. The world stopped. "That's impossible. I would never." I felt like I was drowning. Miss Thompson didn't waver. "We take these allegations very seriously. Child Protective Services has been notified." Just then, James burst in. "What's going on?" Miss Thompson explained the situation. I turned to James, desperate for him to defend me. "You know this isn't true, right?" But James looked torn. He turned to Tyler. "Is this true? Did Harper hurt you?" Tyler, avoiding eye contact, nodded. "Last week, she hit me while you were at work." "That never happened," I shouted, losing my composure. A CPS worker arrived soon after. "Mrs. Walker, we'll need you to leave the family home during our investigation." "Leave?" But I didn't do anything. James finally spoke, his voice low. "Maybe it's for the best, Harper, just until we figure this out." It felt like a slap. "You can't seriously believe this." James wouldn't meet my eyes. "I don't know what to believe right now." In a daze, I packed a bag and called Olivia. "Can I stay with you? I'll explain everything when I get there." At her apartment, I broke down. Between sobs, I told her everything. That little brat. Olivia fumed. And James, how dare he not stand up for you? I don't know what to do, Liv. My whole life is falling apart. Olivia hugged me tight. First things first, we're getting you a lawyer. I know just the person. The next day, we met with Sandra Davis, a sharp-eyed attorney specializing in family law. This is a serious situation, Harper, Sandra said, but false accusations do happen. We'll fight this. Back at work, whispers followed me everywhere. Did you hear Harper beat her stepson? My colleague Mark asked. I always thought there was something off about her. Later, Mark approached my desk. Tough break, huh? Kids say the darndest things. He's lying, Mark. I didn't touch him, I said through gritted teeth. Hey, I'm just saying, where there's smoke. He trailed off as I stormed away, locking myself in the bathroom. I called Olivia, my voice shaking. I can't do this, Liv. Everyone thinks I'm a monster. Listen to me, Olivia said, her voice steady. You were strong. You were innocent. We'll get through this. As I hung up, I caught my reflection in the mirror. I looked tired, scared, but there was a spark of determination in my eyes. I will not let them break me, I whispered to myself. I will fight this, and I will win. In the following weeks, Sandra and I worked tirelessly to build my case. We need character witnesses, she explained. Anyone who can vouch for your relationship with Tyler. I thought hard. Mr. Peterson, he's seen me with Tyler at company picnics. When I called, Mr. Peterson didn't hesitate. Of course I'll testify. I've seen you with Tyler. You're patient and kind. Tears welled up as I hung up. At least someone believed in me. Sandra also arranged for a psychological evaluation. After several sessions, Dr. Ramirez concluded, I see no signs of abusive tendencies. In fact, you show a strong desire to nurture and protect. It was a small victory, but I'd take what I could get. Meanwhile, James had gone radio silent. The few times he did reach out, it was all about him. People are talking, Harper. This is really affecting my business, he said one day. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Your business, James? My entire life is falling apart. He hung up without another word. A few days later, Olivia called, her voice tight with anger. You won't believe what I just heard. What now? I sighed. I was at Starbucks and overheard James talking to some neighbors. He was bad-mouthing you, Harper, saying he should have known better than to marry someone he barely knew. The betrayal stung like a physical blow. He said that. After everything I've done for him and Tyler? I'm so sorry, honey. You deserve better than this, Olivia said gently. Just when I thought things couldn't get any worse, a breakthrough came from an unexpected source. Miss Thompson, Tyler's teacher, contacted Sandra, requesting an urgent meeting. I've noticed some inconsistencies in Tyler's story, she explained, looking uncomfortable. And, well, I did some digging. This isn't the first time Tyler has made false accusations. My heart raced. What do you mean? Miss Thompson sighed. Last year, he accused a teacher of favoritism when he didn't get the lead in the school play. It was investigated and found to be completely fabricated. Sandra leaned forward. And you're just bringing this up now. I feel terrible, Miss Thompson admitted. I should have looked into this history more thoroughly before escalating things. I'm here to make it right. As the investigation deepened, more truths came to light. Tyler's school counselor revealed a pattern of manipulative behavior, often playing James and me against each other. Tyler shows signs of severe emotional neglect, the counselor explained. He creates drama to get attention. It all started making sense, the acting out, the lies, the manipulation. Tyler was crying out for help in the worst way possible. But the most shocking revelation came from Tyler's best friend, Kevin. In a moment of guilt, Kevin confessed to Sandra that Tyler had bragged about his plan. He said he was going to make up stuff about his stepmom so his dad would kick her out, Kevin admitted. He said his dad always believes him and buys him stuff to make up for it. I felt a whirlwind of emotions, anger, pity, and heartbreak. Tyler had been hurting for so long, and James had been too blind to see it. As the truth unraveled, I couldn't help but think back to all the red flags I'd ignored. How James would brush off Tyler's bad behavior, the expensive gifts that appeared after every tantrum. I should have seen it, I told Olivia over coffee. I was so focused on making things work, I missed what was really going on. You can't blame yourself, Olivia said, squeezing my hand. You were trying to be a good wife and stepmom. I nodded, a new determination settling in. You're right, now it's time to start fighting for myself. The day the case was officially dropped should have felt like a victory, but it was bittersweet. My name was cleared, but the damage was done. I couldn't go back to that house, to James and Tyler. It wasn't home anymore. I met with Sandra to discuss the next steps. I want a divorce, I said, my voice steadier than I felt. Sandra nodded, unsurprised. We'll cite James's lack of support and Tyler's false accusations. It should be straightforward. Straightforward, maybe, but not easy. Every signature on those papers felt like closing a chapter of my life I'd never get back. At work, I threw myself into every project. Mr. Peterson noticed. "Harper, your performance these past few months has been exceptional," he said during my review. "I'm promoting you to Senior Marketing Director." I nearly fell out of my chair. "Thank you, sir. I don't know what to say." He smiled. "There's more. The position is in our New York office. A fresh start, if you want it." I didn't even hesitate. "I'll take it." As I packed up my life, Olivia helped, filling me in on the local gossip. "James is having a rough time," she said. "Lost a bunch of clients when the truth came out. And Tyler, he got suspended for bullying. Guess the apple doesn't fall far from the tree." I felt a twinge of something, not quite sympathy, but something close. I hoped they got the help they needed. Both of them. New York was everything I needed. A new job, a new apartment, a new me. I even started volunteering at a youth center, mentoring kids from troubled homes. It felt good to use my experiences to help others. 2 years flew by, and one afternoon I was in my office reviewing quarterly reports when my assistant brought in a letter. The return address made my heart skip. Tyler's old school. Inside was a note from Miss Thompson. "Dear Harper, I hope this letter finds you well. I'm writing to inform you that Tyler has been caught in a serious lie at his new school. He's facing expulsion. James has reached out for help, but I thought you should know. Sincerely, Miss Thompson." I sat back, a whirlwind of emotions hitting me. Part of me wanted to laugh at that irony. Another part itched for the troubled kid I tried so hard to help. "You okay, boss?" my assistant Jen asked. "You look like you've seen a ghost." I smiled, folding the letter. Just a blast from the past, nothing to worry about. That night, as I got ready for my date with Michael, a kind, understanding man I'd met through my volunteer work, I thought about how far I'd come. 2 years ago, I was fighting to prove my innocence. Now, I was thriving in a job I loved, helping kids who needed it, and dating someone who respected me. As Michael and I walked to dinner, hand in hand, I realized something. I was happy, truly, genuinely happy. "What are you smiling about?" Michael asked, squeezing my hand. I looked up at the New York skyline, my adopted home, just thinking about how sometimes the worst things that happen to us lead us to the best places. He nodded, understanding in his eyes. "Well, I'm glad whatever happened led you here." Me too, I thought. I'd survived, I'd thrived, and I'd found happiness. Meanwhile, those who had wronged me were facing the consequences of their actions. It wasn't about revenge, it was about justice, and the best revenge was living well. As we entered the restaurant, I made a decision. That letter, I wasn't going to respond. That chapter of my life was closed. I had a new story to write, and I couldn't wait to see how it unfolded. The story ends here, but the conversation is just beginning. What would you have done in Harper's shoes? If you received that letter about Tyler 2 years later, would you have responded, offering help despite the pain he caused? Or would you have kept that chapter firmly closed? Your experiences shape your perspective, and we'd love to hear your thoughts. Drop your answer in the comments below.